Guys, World of Warcraft's pre-patches have a long history of epic battles and crazy events and grand lore moments and these amazing rewards, and it just all hypes up their respective expansions. But Dragonflight's pre-patch is a little... Let's talk about that today. Something seems to be going wrong here. But before we really get into talking about Dragonflight, I just want to set the stage here by talking about the history of pre-expansion events. So let's just take a quick little dive back into the past real fast. Going all the way back to the beginning, the first pre-patch event before a new expansion came out was the humble Dark Portal Invasion for the Burning Crusade. And this added powerful world bosses like High Lord Cruel, demons to fight in the Blasted Lands, and even a special tabard with a light effect, which is awesome. I love this thing. And you know, people liked this event. It was simple, it was fun, it introduced the idea of the demons invading Azeroth, and so Blizzard wanted to up the ante with Wrath of the Lich King. So with Blizzard's next pre-patch before the release of its second expansion, they kind of went the extra mile, maybe a little too much. And this was the Wrath of the Lich King Scourge Invasion and Undead Plague, and these were massive world events, thousands of corpses littering the streets of capital cities, and they even added some of the most legendary items in World of Warcraft into the game during this time. The Undead Slayer's battle gear, the Tabard of the Argent Dawn, and the most famous and sought after of them all, the Arcanite Ripper. If you guys have these items, fantastic. And if you're unfamiliar with how things went with the Wrath of the Lich King Classic pre-patch, it was a little chaotic. You can check out some of our previous videos on the subject. Anyway, in Mists of Pandaria's pre-patch, we were given the massive lore event and quest line where Garrosh Hellscream drops a mana bomb on Theramore. This has been one of, if not the most consequential events in WoW's storyline, leading to a lot of the lore that we have today, both good and bad. Then we had Warlords of Draenor, and this had some big shoes to fill, but it was one of the most hyped up expansions, and its pre-patch saw the fastest growth in players in WoW's history. Fun fact if you didn't know that, shooting to over 10 million players within only the first few months, a record which still stands to this day. WoD's pre-patch was reminiscent of TBC. The Dark Portal turned blood red, the Iron Horde was pouring through into the Blasted Lands, Upper Blackrock Spire was brought to max level, and the long-awaited HD character models were released to the game. And we had Legion, came with new invasions across the world, NPCs in cities holding signs and calling out the end of the world, and the coolest of all, just being in a capital city gave you a chance of being possessed by a demon and turning into a mini world boss rampaging across Stormwind and Orgrimmar, slaughtering your own faction and your friends. You could even turn other players to the Burning Legion's grasp. So, that was a mouthful. There was a lot to say, but it just establishing kind of the feel of what we've been building up to. Now we have Dragonflight's pre-patch. That's what's coming out on the horizon. And it's a little disappointing, I admit, just given some fair criticism here. Let's talk about that today. So you're probably thinking, after all those patches that I just talked about, Blizzard was probably going to put something really big effort into the pre-patch for this new expansion. Surely we would be getting some sort of big, amazing event for Dragonflight, especially after the failures of Shadowlands, right? Well, I wish I could tell you that, but sadly, that's not the case. So far, the only information that we have about Dragonflight's pre-patch is that it will be releasing the updated classes, the UI changes, the new talent trees, some new achievements, and the new Dracthyr / Evoker race and class combo, and that'll become available to play. Some of this stuff is already available, like the new talent trees. You guys have already been playing with them, I guarantee it. And the thing is, like, before you freak out, this is something that every single pre-patch has done, you know, giving us these talent reworks and like little teasers into, you know, the upcoming class or something. So this is nothing new. So what else do we got? Well, the only other thing that's coming with this pre-patch that we're aware of is that there's going to be this limited time pre-patch event for Dragonflight, and it's what Blizzard is calling Primal Storm Invasions. Now, these are static invasions taking place in 4 zones across Azeroth that will drop a transmog set. Now, granted, these sets do look awesome. I mean, just look at this glorious plate set, dude. This looks fantastic, but it is kind of disappointing given the amazing events that we've seen in the past. I mean, hell, even zone invasions in previous expansions, like the Wrath of the Lich King one with the Necropolises and stuff, they've been better, including quests and different zones for each invasion and more items to obtain than we're getting in the Primal Storms. Even, you know, you have the Scourge zombie invasion event to go along with the zone invasions. I mean, come on, Blizzard, like, what's your excuse here? And that leads me to talking about why there is no excuse. Now, at this point, you might be saying to yourself, well, Blizzard has been on decline for a while now. I really don't expect them to be pulling out all the stops for a pre-patch anymore. And yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, I mean, if you're trying to bring back your game, that is not the kind of mentality that you want to have. You don't want to be cutting corners. So let's talk about that for a second. In the BFA pre-expansion event, it started 4 months before release with the Silithus event and the questline where we discovered and battled over the newly formed Azerite. We even got a new battleground, the first new battleground since Mists of Pandaria, the Seething Shore, a completely new type of battleground where you collect and fight over resources spread across the map. We then got a massive world PvP zone in Darkshore where we fought tooth and nail for Teldrassil. This event showcased the brand new world PvP features and war mode system that would be added in BFA. The first time in WoW's history that Blizzard actually added rewards and incentives for world PvP, and it was glorious. After Darkshore, we got the massive Battle for Lordaeron scenario where Alliance marched on the Undercity to avenge the burning of Teldrassil. Then in Shadowlands, we were given the Death Rising event. The Undead Plague and Scourge invasions were back, straight from Wrath of the Lich King. Once again, you could become an undead and slaughter your friends and allies in the streets of your capital city. Over 41 new quests were added, along with 2 cinematics to accompany them. Nathanos Blightcaller was even made a world boss for these events, and it was just awesome. Icecrown was brought back to life with 20 resurrected bosses and rares from Wrath of the Lich King that dropped max level items and Argent commendations that could be turned in for max level gear. The zone itself was filled with bonfires that would give you buffs and remove a constant zone-wide debuff from the frozen winds. NPCs and racial leaders were given new dialogue, further immersing the player in the event. Here's what I'm trying to say, guys. All these previous pre-expansion events were big in scale with new quests and dialogue and lore moments and cinematics and so much stuff. And it just seems like the Dragonflight pre-patch is a little bit disappointing, at least in my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but that's just how I feel, having logged in and been playing with it. Yes, the new talent points are awesome, and yes, I appreciate the UI changes, and yes, I appreciate the fact that we're on the precipice of this new expansion. Lots of people are excited. I'm excited, you know, that's cool, but I just wish that there was a bit more going on here, you know, in this pre-patch event for Dragonflight, especially after all the crap that happened in Shadowlands. This is Blizzard's opportunity to turn over a new leaf, and it's just, I feel like they could have done a lot more. All of this is to say, despite Blizzard interacting with the community more, finally showing signs of change and taking baby steps to improve the game, all I'm really getting at is I don't think there's an excuse for having such a lackluster pre-patch as this. After almost 2 decades of all these amazing events that I've been talking about throughout this video, I'm sorry that most of this video has been me just talking about previous pre-patch events, but there was so much to talk about there, and there's just not a lot to talk about here. And I think that, in and of itself, illustrates my point perfectly. So, guys, I don't know. What do you all think of the Dragonflight pre-patch event? Do you think that it's any good? Are you excited for it? Do you think that it's establishing a good tone for Dragonflight? Because I don't know. I just think it's a little simple. I am looking forward to playing the Dracthyr, I admit, flying around. But aside from that, I mean, Primal Invasions, getting some transmogs, it'll be fun. But I don't know. Blizzard, I feel like you got a little lazy. You want my honest, fair, said with love criticism? I think this is a little lackluster and you could have done a lot better, especially considering how a lot of people are becoming more hyped for World of Warcraft as Dragonflight gets closer. So I think you could have done a lot more, but I guess we'll see if Blizzard put a lot of their focus more onto the expansion and the Dragon Isles as opposed to the pre-patch for the Dragon Isles. Guess we'll find out. And you know, the best part about Dragonflight is that Dragonflight is already making a lot of changes that I think are going to really bring back a lot of the player base and really make people fall in love with this expansion. And that's why you need to check out this video right here. Dragonflight is already winning where Shadowlands failed. This is a rant on why Shadowlands storytelling failed so hard and why it failed to connect with the player base. and why the Dragonflight storyline, despite being so simple, is connecting with people in a way that I don't think Blizzard expected. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you with my next video.